Did you know that there are physical pathways in the brains of socially anxious people that are different from those without the condition? These have been mapped out in leading scientific journals. The human brain is composed of approximately 100 billion neurons. It is the connections that these form by firing and wiring together that create the anxiety-ridden lives that many of us experience. In this video, I'll show you how your brain causes you to feel anxious and what you can do to begin rewiring it to gradually feel more confident. Hey there, I'm Neil and I struggle with social anxiety for more than 2 decades. On this channel, every week, I'll be bringing you the best methods and strategies that I've used in my own life to feel more confident. Neurons are nerve cells in our brain and they transmit messages, thoughts and emotions throughout our body. They have the power to alter the internal state of organs in our body, such as our heart rate, and they allow us to remember and think about things as well. When our neurons repeatedly fire together, they wire together as well. The more they do this over time, then the stronger these connections become. These changes, however, are not always positive. In social anxiety's case, trauma, both acute and chronic, due to the environment that you grew up in, can be a driving factor behind the anxiety that you experience today. Our neurons have fired and wired together to make us feel anxious in certain social situations. One example of this may be whenever you're talking to an authority figure. So your brain may have learned over time that talking to authority figures makes you feel anxious, so every time you do this, it causes more anxiety. These connections may have become so strong that simply the mere thought of talking to an authority figure may cause you to feel some level of anxiety. Another example could be giving a presentation, so your neurons may begin to fire at the thought of doing this and trigger anxiety, fear and worry. Whenever you have a presentation coming up, you may feel a real sense of dread because your neurons have fired and wired together so often that it's become so strongly associated with negativity in your brain. Brain scans have shown that the brains of people with social anxiety disorder can be easily identified and that there are clear differences between those without the condition. But the good news is that the brain is malleable and it is wired for change. Your old neural pathways may have automatically led you down the paths of anxiety, fear and depression, but the good news is that we can begin to change this. For those of us with social anxiety, we can begin to make structural changes to the brain due to learning, so social anxiety is not a life sentence. This is due to the brain's neuroplasticity, and it allows the brain to create new pathways, forge new connections, and even in some cases, it can create new neurons. The brain can always adapt to the ever-changing environment. There are many benefits to neuroplasticity, but some of the best ones are that you have the ability to learn new things and to enhance existing cognitive capabilities. Neuroplasticity is ongoing throughout life. People used to think that the brain became fixed after a certain age, and that it was during infancy and childhood that was the only time that you could make real changes to the brain, but new research has shown that the brain actually never stops learning. A good example of this was a study that compared London taxi drivers to a control group that did not drive taxis. So it was found that in the London taxi drivers, their posterior hippocampi, which are the parts of the brain that are heavily involved in memory and learning, were significantly larger than the control subjects due to their extensive navigational experience. Their increase in size even correlated with their time spent as a taxi driver, and it shows that the healthy adult human brain has the ability to experience localized structural changes in response to environmental demands. So it shows that the brain is malleable, it can change even as an adult. To get better, you must begin to start interrupting the fire and wire connections in your brain. And the way to do this is by beginning to respond differently to situations that you have done in the past. You need to learn new cognitive strategies that can deal with these connections, and every time you implement one of these strategies in your life and use it, you're literally beginning to interfere with the connections in your brain, sending you in a more positive direction towards an anxiety-free life. Examples of this may include using things like mindfulness strategies or slowing down techniques whenever you're in social situations, and also using things like turning the tables on negative thoughts so that you start to think in a more rational way. Your brain's neural pathways will begin to change as a result of this, and then if you do it enough over time, the new pathways that you're creating will begin to become habitual, and you'll start using them by default in situations that caused you a great deal of anxiety in the past. This is how you begin to overcome social anxiety, and with enough time, things like presentations and going to parties will start to cause you less anticipatory anxiety ahead of time. Changing these habits does take time. Neuroplasticity is a process, and it doesn't just happen overnight. You can't just do it once and expect things to change all at the same time. You just have to make them habitual, keep doing them every day, and it's the little things that add up over time into the big results. The more you do this, your old pathways will begin to weaken because you're no longer using them as often, and the new ones will begin to take over as they get stronger and stronger. Other things we can do to really help the process along are getting enough sleep, eating healthily, and doing regular exercise. Also, challenging ourselves regularly, consistently, and also practicing mindfulness can really make a big difference when it comes to making neuroplastic changes in our brain. Regular mindfulness practice can improve your attention, your memory, and your ability to regulate your emotions. It's repeated and somewhat uncomfortable efforts over time that are required to change the brain for the good in the long run. Just as the brains of the London taxi drivers have been shown to change, the brains of people with social anxiety disorder who engage in cognitive behavioural therapy have been shown to change as well. People that participate in as little as just 9 weeks of internet-based cognitive behavioural therapy have been shown to have changes in volume. So their levels of anxiety reduce, and parts of their brain have been shown to show less activity and decrease in volume as well. If you enjoyed this video and you want to watch more, then check out my next one, where I'll be giving you some really good slowing down strategies that you can use to begin to interrupt the fire and wire connections in your brain. If you found this content valuable, then please hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.